Okay, how's it going? My name is Nelson Guillen. I go by Moxie Roxy on Twitter, on Discord, and as well as on the Limitless tournaments. I just want to go over my Los Angeles regional experience. My run basically, I went 10-4-1, so I made 52nd place in the Masters division out of like 2,000 players. I think I did pretty well. I know that a couple of my mistakes could have been better, right? Like I got two judge calls on me, and both of them I knew for a fact like I made a mistake on. But like I'll get to those when I get to those matches. This is the deck choice that I made. I made Lost Box. I decided on Lost Box just because it has an answer to a lot of the different things that were in the meta. I knew going into this there was going to be a lot of people. There was going to be a lot of different decks, especially with there being Dialga, Stall, Zard. People were just hyping those up. Pal, Item Lock, Banette. I just needed something to where I can just have an answer to everything. Even Lugia, I felt like was going to be pretty big, and it happened that it did. And so every single matchup I had during LA was something different. So I'm kind of glad I had something that can help me deal with all of those, right? And I've had experience with Lost Box for quite a while. In Sacramento, I placed 17th place using Lost Box Kyogre. Um, in that format, there was a bunch of Charizard. So like, I was playing a lot of Mew at the time, and I was just like, I needed something that I know how to play and just get by, right? So I chose Lost Box, and it did well for me because I went up against like 8 Charizards that regional, and a lot of them just did not know how to play Charizard during that time. There was like no optimal list or optimal way to play it out against Lost Box. So I'm glad that I made that decision. Then Jirachi hit, and then it took me back a little bit. Like I did not want to play Lost Box going into Jirachi format. But now it seemed like now going into the LA regionals, I just did not respect Charizard whatsoever. I did not care that if they had Jirachi or not. I didn't care if they set up Manaphy. Most often than not, like what happened in one of the games, he just forgot to set up Manaphy for some reason, and I just took advantage and I Greninja down their Charmanders. So I'm just glad that I did choose Lost Box. I'm gonna go over my list. I decided to run Hoopa variant, as well as Iono and Pokegear. A lot of these little slight off card, but this is like the deck that mostly everybody else was kind of playing. I know that Calvin Connor was playing a list similar to this, except he had like Rotom. And a bunch of other players were also just playing the same list, right? Going into LA, this was my Lost Box build. I had Oranguru. I borrowed that idea from I don't know his name, but he's off Limitless. Um, he used to play a lot of Chimpao Brax. He's on Tournament of Doom. I should know his name. He'll come to me. I'm pretty sure he'll come to me. But he played Oranguru, and I thought it was an awesome idea because of you can just get Force Seal Stone and Rescue Board from it. And then he was also playing Rotom, which at Stockholm, I think that was like second place. He won with the Rotom deck, so people are assuming the Rotom was very powerful, and I think that it's all right, but I think it's just a little too slow for this format. You just don't want decks to set up, and that's the issue. I also expected there to be a lot more Flutter Mane, a lot more Banette Lock, and a lot of more Stall. And it just felt like if you started with one of those things, Rotom or Ranguru, it just doesn't really help you out too much. Um, and then I also expected a lot of Lugia, and I really wanted a Raikou. And I felt like Oranguru and Rotom were just taking up that spot, right? I think the one that in Stockholm they had Luminion also in the deck, as well as an Ultra Ball. And my buddies were trying to convince me into playing that, but I just kind of just could not get into it. I just didn't. Have a horrible time playing Ultra Ball into a Lost Box deck just because you just have so many resources you just don't want to get rid of, right? And I feel like it's a great choice if you know how to work it, but I just did not know how to play with the Ultra Ball, so I just decided not to run with it. But this was the list, right? I liked the Palpad, I liked the Oranguru, but just in a regional setting, it just not felt great. Also, I did not have Boss, and Boss came into play so many times during my LA run, so kind of glad that I went away from this. The two Lost Vacuum was also like something I had to like get rid of. I only went with one. Buddy Poffin, I was running two because three only one Buddy Poffin's good enough to get out all your two comfies and stuff, but I wanted to get a third one in because again, if you draw into it, it's great. You know, it's almost like VIP pass. You kind of want a little bit more of it. So this was the list. This is the list by Brent Hodgson when he went. I think he went fifth or sixth in that same regional in Stockholm. He played two Boss's Orders and two Roxanne. Right? He does not play a counter catcher, and I thought that idea was pretty great. He was also playing Manaphy. So those were kind of like the ideas that I took from him. I took the Manaphy and the double supporters. The second boss is great because it allows you to be very aggressive compared to just having a counter catcher. Because against a stall matchup, you want to be aggressive. You want to be able to pull up their Rotom, and then if they put down a second Rotom, you're able to boss it back up. It's not a dead card like counter catcher is early in the game, right? And then sometimes when you're using Turbo Lost Box, especially with Turbo Lost Box, your flower selectings are pretty brutal. So it's always great just to have a second one, right? Great to have a second Roxanne and a second boss. So I thought the list was great. So I made a couple changes for mine to kind of be a little bit similar to his, and it did help me out a little bit. The second list that I kind of took ideas from was Lee Bui. He goes by Master Lee Bui on Limitless. He plays 6-0 in one of the challenges of Doom tournaments. And his list is very, very turbo. It does not run Iron Hands, does not run Hoopa, nothing. He tries to get 7 in the Lost Zone as fast as possible, and he does not want a bad starter. So that's why he did not have anything else that has more than 2 retreat costs, because he just wants to be able just to move as quickly as possible. And in a best out of one scenario, that's pretty good. And I feel like, you know, if you go into a cup or a challenge, this is amazing. He did play the Iono, and that's what that's where I got from him. The Iono is pretty great against the Mirror and against Lost Box Tina. This meta has a lot of, and especially with Chien-Pao as well, this meta just does not really have a lot of Iono per se in those decks, or any way to like disrupt their own hand, so they'll just keep building up their hand with resources that they really want, right? So and then what they're trying to do is play around the Roxanne, right? So they're never going to get you down to 3. And then if they're about to, they are going to use up their resources or find some way to use it before they get Roxanne, right? If Iono, you're kind of disrupting that giving that ability for them to save it. So you use the Iono, they got to put their hand of 10 or 12 right back to the bottom of their deck, stuff that they needed, and now they draw into energy that they super rotted back in, or anything else that they put back into the deck, right? The only thing that I could not do, the only thing that I kind of did not want to take from these lists was the Town Store and the Pokestop. With my list, I was running 2 Artisans, and I think it was because, I think it was Indiana. I saw a list by Dean, and he was playing 2 Artisan, and I was like, why? And the main reason is consistency. The Artisan allows you just to get your Pokemon out, and sometimes that's what you really need. Sometimes you just want your Cram out. Sometimes you just want that Manaphy out without wasting a Nest Ball or a Sableye or whatever the case may be. You just want to be able to set up. That's the main thing, because you just don't want to brick. On top of that, I assumed that my opponents, if I was going up against the Mirror, I was assuming that they were going to play the Pokestop. They were going to play the Town Store. And majority of the times they did. And then I just ended up using it for my own, and then getting rid of it, and then putting down my own Artisan for, you know, whatever reason. And so that just happened to me. And then, you know, Pokestop, it's great. It's great, but because I'm playing a big, heavy supporter count, Pokestop just gets rid of my supporters as well. And I'm not playing Pal Pad, so it kind of like, you know, it counteracts like what I was trying to do. So I built my list from other people's lists and seeing how they kind of went through the meta. And then on top of that, like I said, it was a big collection of other different archetypes that were in the area. So I kind of wanted to go with it. So yeah, so with that being said, I'm going to go over my matchups. And I'm going to go over them kind of briefly. Again, this is like my first time doing one of these vlogs or recap videos, and I don't know what's the right setup for this is, so like, just, you know, bear along with me. My first match was against Carlos Lobos. He was playing Roaring Mood and Duskmars. That matchup can be very easy for Lost Box, but what happened was in the first game, I prized two lightning energy, my only two lightning energies, and then my first flower selecting was like Sableye and Psychic Energy. So I had to like get rid of one of those. So basically, I was just not using Sableye in that game. And then that matchup and the Ancient Box matchup, that's the only really time when you really use Sableye. So that way, you can like Greninja down the Roaring Moon, Greninja down one of their Dunsparce, and then start going havoc with the Sableye, right? So, and I thought that game would go better if I can just find the lightning energy off the prizes, attach it to Iron Hands, and then take a two prize knockout with one of the Greninjas or one of their damaged Roaring Moons. But my two lightning energies were just prized in the corner, so I could never grab them. So he ended up winning, and then the second game I beat him in like 10 minutes, really fast. And then the third game just could not finish. So we ended up getting a tie in that game. So that was on me for like not realizing, hey, I should have just scooped, right? But I wanted to see where it would have led up because again, if I would have won that first match, then second match would have never happened, not giving him a chance to win. So that was like my idea, but I think I should have just scooped. When it got past like the 30-minute mark. Second game was against Ancient Box. He was a Japanese. Oh no, it wasn't Ancient Box. It was Lost Box. My bad. A Mirror Lost Box. That one was just skill based, I think, because he was overcommitting it. Like he was ahead by prizes, by like two prizes, and then he was collecting his hand up, and I decided, no, it messed him up really badly, and then I just came in with the Iron Hands, and I just took 3 turns of 2 prizes, and he just could not answer my Iron Hands. So after that match, he started comfy. I went with Cram, and I just donked him. So, you know what I mean? He just got a little bit too excited. He went a little too turbo. He Giga Milled himself, and then I just ended up capitalizing on him just going a little bit too quick. Third match, Japanese player. He was playing Ancient Box. It seemed like he didn't know a little bit what to do. He was playing the Flutter Mains. He was playing his Roaring Moons pretty actively, but again, I just took advantage of being able to Greninja and Sableye. And it got to a point where I was just like, I even Prime Catchered up there, Greninja, put it into the active, and then I Rock Sand him. And then I just started using Sableye to clean off his bench, and he just could not find any energies to retreat because all his energy was in the discard pile. So he couldn't use his capsules. No, not the capsules. He couldn't not his vessels. He couldn't use his superior energy retriever, super rods, whatever the case may be. He could not just find it, and I just ended up cleaning up that match. Going into the second game, he was going way too slowly for him being behind. Right? He could have won the game because he was like 2 prizes ahead of me, but every single time it was his turn, he would just take like 5-10 minute games or rounds, and then sometimes that just happens, and then we ended up hitting time. And then the first game I won, so I just got the game. The next matchup was against the Dialga. So this guy Joseph Mased, he goes by D Knuckles on Limitless. He's a really good player. He's a really good Palkia player. I've gone against him a couple of times, and he really knows what to do with the deck. This time around, he brought the Dialga because he thought that it was really fun to play. So he played it against me. First game, I started off with Iron Hands. I just could not move him from the active. And after the third turn of him being able to set up with the Dialga, I was just like, I saw the writing on the wall, and I just said scoop in like 5 minutes. And then second game, I was able to set up a little bit better. It came down to him having a bunch of energy onto his Dialga. I came down with the Hoopa. Hoopa hit his Dialga for like 400 damage to win me the game. And he was just like, damn, he didn't expect that to happen. And then third game, I just cleaned it up. I just Greninja down his Metangs or his Beldums, and then he just could not set one up. And then he had to manually attach the energies to Dialga. I killed the Dialga, and then he just could not recover from there. So I ended up getting that win. Fifth round was against a Arctina player. The Arctina player was pretty good. He knew how to use Judge effectively. He wasn't playing anything too crazy. He was just playing, Arctina with Iron Leaves. and I think he was playing Prime Catcher. So I knew he didn't have an out to my Hoopa. But what happened was the first game he won clean. I just could not set up after getting judged. Second game, I got a DPL because I Mirage gated with 6 in the lost zone. And I picked up the deck, did an illegal search, and I was like, I understand the situation. The judge gave me the DPL. I had my Hoopa set up on the board to be able to deal with his RCSs and his Tina, but because he was 2 prizes ahead, all he really needed to do was kill my Hoopa and like 2 of the comfies, and he ended up winning the game. So like, but he was a good player. I saw the lines that he was doing. It was just a simple mistake from me. Maybe if it would have gone it like maybe if the game would have played out, we would have hit a tie. We were playing pretty quickly, so it would have went into like a game 3. And hey, it might have been a tie, might have been a game. Who knows? That was on me. But at the same time, the guy is a good player. 6th game was against Zard. That one was pretty easy. He just really wanted to prioritize his setup. So like he had he like puffing down a 2 Charmanders. He nest balled for a Pidgey, and then he passed it on to me. He was going first, I think, and then I turned 1, got 7 in the lost zone, Greninja down to 2 Charmanders, and then he played it out. He continued to play the game out, and I said that's fine. And then every single time he put down a Charmander, I would cram boss it, knock it out, and then going into game 2, I thought that we would hit time, but like he would put Pidgeot down, I would Raikou it up, or I'll Raikou it down, and then Iron Hands a couple of their Charmanders, and I ended up winning the game. So there was another reason for why I wanted Raikou. Raikou is just, it deals with Pidgeot so effectively without having to use a Mirage Gate. Or like a couple Mirage Gates to power it up, right? You can attach one for turn and just attach another one the next turn, and then be able to just attack things that are weak to lightning. So that was not bad. After that, I went up against a Gardelock. Oh yeah, Brian Kim. This one was a really hard matchup. We played it out. He had, I think, a 1-1 line or 2-2 line of the Banette, right? And I was afraid of this matchup. Going into Los Angeles. I for sure thought that it would be very hard to deal with, but what ended up happening was I built up a lot of pressure. I ended up going first, got 3 in the lost zone super quick. I put the Artisan down. I vacuumed it away, and then he set up his Shuppet. He flipped a coin, tails. I said, cool, my turn. Got 7 in the lost zone, and I just started using my Mirage Key to power everything up. And then I ended up just cleaning him out. I used Iron Hands. I used Roaring Moon. He just, when you build enough pressure against the lock player, they just can't do much. Second game, he was able to win because he had a Flutter Mane in the active. You know, that's just one of those cases where like that just happens. And in third game, he had 2 Raltses, and I used Greninja to knock them both out before time was hit. So that's a hard, it's a hard matchup, but at the same time, if you build enough pressure, your opponent just folds sometimes. Next matchup was against Lost Box Tina. That one, pretty easy because again, I had the Iono. They didn't expect the Iono. I put all the resources to the bottom of their deck. They must have had like Tina V-Star in their hand that they could never recover back because they don't play Ultra Ball, right? He was playing Thornton, but again, it just never came down to him being able to use it. And I just built enough pressure to where I was knocking out his comfies using Greninja. I knocked out his Tina V by using my Roaring Moon, Calamity Storm, and I just ended up getting both wins. So at that point, I was 6-1-1. I was already tied in, or I was already locked in for day 2. I felt really good. I was not really nervous at any point whether or not I was going to get into day 2, but I just did not want a bad record, right? But then I went up against Aaron in round 9. He was a Chien-Pao player, so for me, I was very cocky. I was super confident going into this matchup, where I felt like I shouldn't have been. Round 1, or game 1, I ended up winning because again, I just used Greninja to knock out his Frigibacks. Game 2, he went first. He was able to set up the Iron Hands super quickly. I did not have Hoopa, and he just ended up taking that game. Third game, he put down 2 Frigius only, and I said, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. I got tunnel vision. I was like, I'm going to just Greninja, Force Seal Stone, Vacuum. I did every single thing I could have to find the knockout with the Greninja, and I was always missing at least 2 cards, or I was always missing 1 card to do the Greninja donk. It was like Mirage Gate or something, or Water Energy in hand. And then at the end, I was just like, Force Seal Stone, I'm gonna put down the Water Energy on the Greninja, or I did something like that. And then I said pass. And then he said something like, he was like, what? You don't have it? And then he ended up getting Greninja, and I was just like, man, I could have just Force Seal Stone for Manaphy to be safe, you know what I mean? Or at least I could have just cramped. I could have done something very simple, but I went for the play, and it ended up biting me in the ass. So good on him for noticing the lines. He saw every single line. It's just that in that matchup, I just ended up being too crazy, right? So that's on me. That's a lesson for me to learn. But hey, that's fine. Going into day two, I went up against May. She was playing Guardy. That one was a little bit tougher. She knew what she was kind of doing. She had Flutter Mane in the active majority of the times, but I ended up just after they put down the first Guardy, or not Guardy, the first Ralts down. I just utilized Prime Catcher to bring it up, get as much in the lock zone as possible, vacuum, cram down their the Raltses to so that way it's hard for them to be able to start drawing, and just focus down the Curlius. And then that ended up winning me the game. Game two, I used Iron Hands. They had a bad setup. They just could not set up their Raltses. And I just manually attached return to the Iron Hands to just win me the game. Um, After that, what was it, round 10? Yeah, or round 11. I went up against a Dialga player. And that one was just my deck not cooperating. I just could not set up in time. And then against Dialga, it's a very time-sensitive match. Because if they can get to 2 Maytangs or like 2 energies onto the Dialgas like as fast as possible, you just can't answer them, right? They're just going to be able to run you down. And then that's what ended up happening. And then also their Dialga V-Stars are too big for you to deal with the Roaring Moon. So you can't really do much about that. So he ended up winning that match. Second game, I ended up killing down his 2 Beldums. He just could never set up. Third game, again, he ended up winning going into time because he was able to start Chronos during time. So he got 3 turns out of that. So he's a good player. He knew what to do. My deck just did not want to cooperate. So that one I accepted as a loss. I said, you know what? We can take a loss because it is what the deck does sometimes, right? So after that, I knew I was getting into top 8 after that match, but I was at least going for like top 16, right? After that, I went up against Landon Callister. I'm sorry if I said his name wrong. So he's a regional champion. I think he won Portland with like Arceus or something. So I kind of figured he was playing Arceus. First game he was playing. So he was playing Arceus Tina with like Radiant Zard in the list. First game, I just could not set up. He was judging me, and I just could not set up, and he just ended up taking the game. Second game, I had the Hoopa down. I was ready to answer everything he was gonna throw at me, but the issue was, I got a game loss during that match because I crammed down his Bidoof. I did not take a prize card. And then his turn, he judged me. I put the cards back into my deck, drew, and then during my turn, I ended up, using flower selecting. And you know what happens there, right? He noticed it, and good on him for noticing it. It's like I accept that as I got you. That's my fault for not paying attention to my own prize cards or taking that action. I just got so used to when you play online so much, you just get used to the game doing so many of the actions for you that sometimes when you're on autopilot, you just forget simple things. And so I said, good game. He's a good player. He knew everything I was about to do. He saw the writing on the wall sometimes. I did too. So that was a good game between us. So now I was just hoping to win out the rest of the games. Hopefully I make a good placement. But and I did. The next matchup I went up against Dialga. No, it wasn't Dialga. I went up against Lugia. Lugia was a pretty easy matchup with Raikou. Super easy matchup with the Iron Hands. And Cram. Every single time I would use Raikou to knock out Lugia, I would always have a Cram in the background. So like, let's say he answered me with Chinchino, I would just come in and kill him with Cram. Knocked out the Cram, Artisan, get the Cram out, kill it, and then just find some way to like. I can use 3 Mirage Gates if I wanted to on one of my Iron Hands just to get the finishing win, right? And that's basically what happened in that matchup. Uh, Next round, I went against Stall. This is a matchup where I was kind of like, did I make the right changes to the deck to make it to where I can be a little bit better? Because I struggled with Stall for the longest time because I just Gigamel myself. Like, I just get rid of switches as fast as possible because I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like, oh, they're gonna Eerie me or they're gonna Misfortune Sister me. But what I ended up doing was just playing it cool. I had Comfy. I usually had 1 or 2 Comfies down because you always need to be able to draw, right? Or find cards from your hand or from your deck. I had a Greninja, Roaring Moon, Sableye, and Crammed. So just stuff that can attack. The biggest attacker was obviously Roaring Moon. I was able to boss up their Rotom, kill it, um, and then I would Prime Catcher, kill a Snorlax, and then he'd put down a second Rotom, thinking like I didn't have the second boss or something, or at least I did, or at least I had a Pal Pad, or whatever. And then I just ended up bossing up that second Rotom and killing it, and then winning the game through just him not being, because he knew I still had like 6 switches in the deck, so he was like, all right, I'll scoop. And then after that, he started Manaphy. I went second, or I went first. I think he just had a Manaphy. He said pass, and I just got the Cram and killed it. So that felt really good to me. I felt like I was finally able to beat the matchup that I was like fearing for the longest time. Um, I ended up going 2-0 against Stall. So that felt great for me as a player, knowing that I got a little bit better at making the right deck choices and being able to sequence them good enough to beat out my worst matchups, right? And then my last matchup was against the Mirror Lost Box. That one was a really fun matchup because what does Lost Box do? It bricks. So my first game, I started with Comfy with energy attachment and pass, right? He went second, he crammed me. And I said, cool. Second game, same thing happened. He had a big basic in the active, could not move it out of the way. He had no chorus, nothing, just a bunch of energy. And then I was able to kill it. And then it was on to game 3, where it was an actual matchup. It was an actual. We both used Roxanne. We both used our resources. It just came down to him. I think it was like he had his Iron Hands. I moved it to. I hit into a Raikou. He hit into my Raikou with like the Iron Hands. I retreated. I hit him again, and then it was like he just could not find the boss for game or whatever because he was at 1 prize, and I was just using Iono and Roxanne to disrupt him. I brought up his Greninja, and I just started using Sableye. And then it ended up winning me the game. So that was like my Los Angeles experience. Lost Box, I've always had just like an affinity for it. I felt like it's a very good deck to just pilot when you want answers to everything. Obviously, I didn't go up against any Pidgeot control. I feel like that might be a little bit of a hard matchup if the player knows what they were doing, especially the Charizard match, the Charizard control. That would have been a very difficult matchup for me if I did not get the Giga hands to like be able to answer their Pidgeot and stuff. I did have 2 bosses, which would have helped me out a little bit, but again, if they used Luxray or anything else to like hinder my way to like power it up, then it might have been a really bad matchup. Lugia, again, I felt like Lugia's not really that bad. I was very confident going into this regional. I knew I was gonna get a good placement. I just hope that I did a little bit better. But going into the next season, I feel like I definitely will do better with these little minor mistakes. Um, and basically, that's it. I'm not really gonna do any IC, which means I'm not doing Worlds. I'm sitting at like 500 points for CP, which again, for my first competitive year, I feel like is very good. It's very good of me to be able to do that much. I did met a lot of people at these tournaments. At regionals, people recognized me off of Limitless. They knew that I played Gouging Fire in late night. I got like 3rd place with Gouging Fire. So people were like, "Oh, was that you? Was that you?" So that felt great. And so I hope be able to do that again, meet new people, and meet people that I know out there. So thank you guys for just watching this video, and hope to put out more content like this. All right, goodbye.